My grandfather was not a nice man. He proved it every day of his life, and even after his death. Richard Allen Font was born in 1940 to parents struggling to make ends meet. He grew up poor, dirt poor. The middle child of 7 children, he learned early what it felt like to be invisible. Home life was chaotic. His mother barely noticed him, and the only attention he received from his father left him bruised and angry. At 15, he left home determined to make his fortune, and he did. By the time he was in his 30s, my grandfather bought and sold companies with ruthless ease. People didn't matter. Profits did. Even his marriage was more of a business agreement than a partnership. He married my grandmother in 1975. They had 3 children. My Uncle Jerry in 1977. Then twins in 1979. My Aunt June and my mother, Joan. My mom described her parents' relationship as civil. Relationship goals. Am I right? In 2001, my grandmother passed away, leaving my grandfather unbothered. Like I said, he wasn't a great guy, but he was worth millions. The people around him, including his children and grandchildren, sucked up to him like crazy. They fawned over him, feeding his ego with inflated compliments. But he was nasty, not stupid, and saw right through their nonsense. When he died a few months ago, I assumed he would leave his fortune to some obscure organization, or even have it buried with him. So when my mother called about the reading of his will, I was a little surprised. The following week, my mom, aunt, uncle, 4 cousins and I arrived at my grandfather's estate. We filed into his office. The room smelled like cigars and money. A man in a stiff suit entered the office and introduced himself as Carson Barnes. He sat down at my grandfather's desk to read the will. My family's eyes lit up and they quickly found seats. There was no grief in that room, just excitement and greed. Mr. Barnes scanned the room briefly and began to read. I, Richard Allen Font, declare this to be my last will and testament. My cousin Sylvia interrupted right away. Hey, can we skip to the good part? The room nodded in agreement. Of course, Mr. Barnes said, pulling out a handwritten letter. He cleared his throat. To my children and grandchildren, my own flesh and blood, I created my empire from nothing. A self-made man with riches beyond anything I could have imagined. Smiles crept across the room, and I swear, I could see dollar signs in my uncle's eyes. The letter continued. So, I find it rather unfair to hand over such a large sum to people who don't know what it's like to earn a fortune of this size. Smiles dropped, replaced with confusion. What the hell does that mean? My Aunt June said, throwing her hands in the air. May I finish? Mr. Barnes inquired. My aunt folded her arms and nodded. She looked like a spoiled child. I snorted, trying not to laugh. My estate, in its entirety, will be bestowed upon the person able to figure the 5-digit code required to open the safe in my office. Mr. Barnes stood and grabbed the frame of the painting behind the desk. He pulled and it swung out on a hinge, revealing a wall safe. That's rather cliché, my uncle muttered. Mr. Barnes kept reading. You'll find all the clues you need around my office. Find the numbers, enter them in correct order, and the money is yours. Excitement re-entered the room, but Mr. Barnes wasn't done reading. I do have a few rules you must follow. 1. You have 2 hours to complete the task. 2. All of you will receive an envelope with a clue. 3. Search for clues to find the correct code numbers, and for the proper order to enter them. 4. It cannot be shared, not even between my children. 5. The code can be entered only once. If it is incorrect, the exercise is over, and you all leave, empty-handed. Mr. Barnes will lock the office door, and there will be no access to internet and phone services. The letter concluded with, Just think of me as the host of an escape room. More like Jigsaw from the Saw movies. My oldest cousin Bethany complained. This is crazy. Mr. Barnes set the letter on the desk, then pulled 8 envelopes from a folder. My uncle got up so fast his chair tipped over. He almost knocked down my cousin Sylvia. I don't think I have seen him move that fast in years. Once everyone had an envelope in hand, Mr. Barnes reminded us of the rules, referring to the letter on the desk. My mother smiled and squeezed my hand. We got this, she whispered. The teams were already forming. The cousins grouped together claiming girl power, but without the power of the internet, I doubted their competence level. My aunt and uncle were both on their own, already scanning the room for more clues. Greed had already claimed them, and I could tell they weren't going to play fair. 2 hours. Starting now, Mr. Barnes said as he walked out of the office. Then the lock clicked. Let the games begin, my uncle said, ripping open his envelope. The others did the same. Most of the envelopes contained old black and white photos of my grandfather as a young man, likely taken before he even met my grandmother. 2 envelopes contained old newspaper clippings. One told the story of his first major purchase. The headline read, "Businessman hits the jackpot in record-breaking sale." The article stated he turned the tables on a large textile company, acquiring it for pennies on the dollar. The second clipping was small and yellowed. It looked like it had been folded and unfolded many times, making it almost ready to fall apart. It was an obituary notice from 1982 for Brad Font, his father. The last envelope was mine, and it was empty. The cousins screamed with laughter. "Looks like he wasn't too fond of you?" My uncle chuckled and slapped me on the back. For the next hour and a half, the office was torn apart. Theories were made, and tempers flared. Finally, my aunt had a possible idea. "The pictures," she said, grabbing the stack. "Look, he's waving here, all 5 fingers showing. Number 5. My uncle looked skeptical. The cousins rolled their eyes. "But," she continued, "now this one has him holding some fish he caught. 4 fish to be exact. And how many fingers is he holding up?" "That's right, 4. She slapped the picture. She was starting to convince the room. The next picture shows him standing next to an apartment door. Must be a place he lived. He's holding up fingers for apartment number 3, my uncle interrupted. He was excited and sweaty. My aunt flipped to the next picture. Peace sign. Bethany squealed. "That's 2. My aunt nodded, and the last picture is him, being him. My grandfather was giving the camera the bird. I let out a laugh. "And that makes 1. My uncle's voice was astonished. I must admit, I was impressed. My aunt seemed to be onto something. Now the numbers needed to be entered in the correct order. But time was running out, with less than half an hour left on the timer. The room went quiet for a minute then. My uncle piped up. "I say we just go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The room groaned. "You're an idiot," my mom said, slumping into a chair. I picked up the pictures. "We're missing something," I said, paging through the old photos. "What we should be missing is you." My uncle pointed his finger in my chest. "Only one of us can claim the inheritance. He didn't even put anything in your envelope." He got closer to me. His breath smelled like gas station hot dogs. "You should probably sit this one out." His voice was low with an attempt at intimidation. I wanted to punch his fat face, but my mom put a soft hand on my shoulder. I sat down at the desk, flipping my uncle the bird. I guess I did get something from my grandfather after all. While my family wasted precious time arguing, I reflected on the photos. The pictures were of a young man, simply enjoying life. The brief time of true happiness, between a rough childhood and a ruthless persona he needed to make his fortune. I picked up the handwritten letter and rules, scanning through the lines. I stopped and grabbed my mom's arm. She bent down, and I whispered in her ear. "The pictures are not the clues." I pulled a pen and paper from the desk drawer, writing fast and talking low. "The first rule is, you have 2 hours to complete the task." I wrote down the number 2. Next it says, all of you will receive an envelope with a clue. It says all of you, not each of you. All of us is 8. Number 3 was a little tricky. Search for clues to find the correct code numbers, and for the proper order to enter them. Search for the clues, and for the proper order. I'm guessing it's the number 4. The next rule says, it cannot be shared, not even between my children. 3, my mother whispered. There are 3 of us. And finally, the last line. The code can be entered only once. If it is incorrect, the exercise is over, and you all leave, empty-handed. The code can only be entered once. The last number was 1. And there it was. The code. 28431. Out of nowhere, my uncle snatched the paper from my hand. "What you got here, sport?" His eyes narrowed as he read the numbers. "Well, well, well," he said, strolling over to the wall. "Safe. It looks like we have a winner." "You're a real piece of work, Jerry," my mom said, ready to tear into him. "My son figured out the code, not you. You human slug." Jerry only smiled. "Well, this human slug is about to be on a beach somewhere, drinking a fruity drink." He raised his finger, ready to enter the code. That's when I yelled for him to stop. The room went still, as if time itself had paused that moment. I moved toward my uncle. "If you enter that code, the safe will not open, and the contract will be void." My uncle looked nervously around the room, then back at me. "There is another clue," I continued. "Another step." "I don't believe you," he said, wiping the sweat from his forehead. I smiled. "Are you willing to take that chance, sport?" Sylvia stepped forward. "Guys, we have like 10 minutes. I took a breath. My envelope was empty. "Right?" I said, picking it up. But it was just a distraction. While looking for an empty clue, it gives time to turn the tables. I put my finger up to the wall safe keypad. Just like my grandfather turned the tables on his first major deal. I slowly typed the numbers. 1, 3, 4, 8, 2. The numbers turned in reverse. A light blinked and the safe opened. My uncle looked like he was going to explode, but there was nothing he could do. The lock clicked, and Mr. Barnes entered the office. He had a stack of paperwork to sign and a set of keys. "Welcome home, sir," he said, handing me the keys. "And it's time for the rest of you to leave." The cousins left, just glad to have internet access again. Things got a little awkward when my aunt and uncle had to be removed by force, vowing to sue. But I'm not worried. My grandfather's will was ironclad. As for me, I'm not a bad guy. I even did something in honor of my uncle. My mom and I are currently on a beach somewhere, drinking fruity drinks.